Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, the which one man hath found, he hideth, for joy thereof goeth, and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one of great price, went and sold all that he had, and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea, and gathered of every kind, which, when it was full, they drew to shore, and sat down, and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away.
So what we're doing is we're heralding, announcing the coming of the next world, the coming of righteousness, the establishment of a righteous kingdom and the proper people that belong in it.
Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather, seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Prepare yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
We're fighting for a kingdom. We're not going through what we're going through just for the hell of it. We're fighting for a kingdom. We're fighting for everlasting life. We're fighting for righteousness to rule once again on the earth. We're fighting for our power, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, to set things back up in the proper order.
But now is risen from the dead, and become the first fruits of them that slept. For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. But every man in his own order, the first fruits, afterward they that are Christ, at his coming. Then cometh the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power. For he must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. For he hath put all things under his feet. But when he saith all things are put under him, it is manifest that he is accepted which did put all things under him. And when all things shall be subdued unto him, then shall the Son also himself be subject unto him that put all things under him. Let God make me all in all.
Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Kampadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful leg out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful leg, the believers and listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua. And what I want to get into, okay, today, right this morning, was dealing with how the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and it was inspired, by, Pop Quiz question from the elder brother Zahab, the head of the Mississippi camp, and he was referring to Revelation 7:4, and it inspired me to go into the history, of the transition from the Assyrian Empire to the Babylonian Empire, which we read of, in the book of Daniel, 7th chapter. Okay, so this is going to be, a lesson, based around, history. Okay, so you already know, but we're finna ride it out, man. You locked in with me, bro. You and Halak, hour long, yeah, our brothers gotta lock in with me this morning, man. We're gonna touch on some things, Lord willing, the spirit. But and one thing that we have to understand is that the elder brother, Rakai Kwame in London, he made a beautiful point on how the Bible is pretty much the DNA for existence, because your DNA gives you your instructions, okay, of what to do and how to be. Pretty much is your programming from the Most High, okay. And when you look at existence, the existence is subjugated to the will of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. Matter of fact, if a brother can post that in Isaiah 46 and verse 9 and 10, okay. And we have witnessed these things play out in history, and we're witnessing it play out now. Okay, and when you go into history and see how accurate the prophecies are, that have came to pass in history, how much accurate are they going to be in this time, man? As we're getting ready to come into our kingdom, man. All right, so let's start off with this. It's the brother Bayan Yasha'Allah, Isaiah 46 and 9. It says, remember the former things are old, for I am the Most High, and there is none else. I am the Most High, and there is none like me. Okay, verse 10. Isaiah 46 and 10 from the brother Bayan Yasha'Allah. It says, declaring the end from the beginning and from the ancient time, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Okay, the Lord does his pleasure in the earth. He rules in the kingdom of men. Okay, he does exactly what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. Okay, and that's how he separates himself from these other false gods. Okay, is through prophecy, and prophecy happening, and not only it happening, but it's happening the way that he said it was going to happen. Okay, so let's get into, okay, if a brother could post Daniel 7 and 4, Daniel 7 and 4, and we're going to get into this video. Now, this site that I found, let me go ahead and go back to it. Let me get it queued up while our brother posted. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to put the link on there a few times throughout the lesson. But this channel, within itself has some really good, history. It's history with Psy, history with Psy CY. It would be good to subscribe to that channel. He does a lot of good history pieces. There's a few more, videos I plan to do, from this channel, Lord will, the spirit allowed. But let's right.
Numbers move you, but some can stop you in your tracks, like the tens of thousands of people who were diagnosed with certain HPV-related cancers. For most people, HPV clears on its own, but for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers. Gardasil 9 is a vaccine given to adults through age 45 that can help protect against certain diseases caused by HPV, including cervical, vaginal, vulvar, anal, and certain head and neck cancers, such as
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of History with Sai. We've come up.
All right, so let's get this in a commercial in itself show you why this place has to be destroyed, man. Okay, so let's get this real quick. This is from the brother. All right, Yashima tribe of Judah. All right, Daniel 7:4, and it says the first was like a lion, okay, and had eagle's wing, and it's represent the Assyrian Empire, till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart, okay, was given unto it. Okay, now the lion with the wings represents the Assyrian, okay, empire. Okay, but then what did you have? The wings were plucked up by what? One of its subordinates, because the Babylonians were a subordinate of the Assyrian Empire. They were subjugated under this Assyrian Empire. Okay, but we're going to go through this history and show you that, the Babylonian Empire pretty much rose up out of the midst of the Assyrian Empire. They overthrew it. Okay, and it was lifted up from the earth. It was exalted because this Neo-Babylonian period was a very exalted time, all right, for the Babylonians. Okay, it was a quick rise to power, and they was exalted in the known earth. They did a lot of conquering, during this reign, and it had a lot of influence in the earth, and it was known because there's a man's heart was given unto it, okay, which is a mind, because this was a very organized empire. Okay, it was an organized empire, and when they had it run, especially in Nebuchadnezzar, all right, which he's noted as one of the great kings, of all time. Okay, for what he brought, to the earth, okay, within his empire, or how he ran his kingdom. So we're going to go into the history of these things, okay, and let history itself speak. All right. And it's all according to the will of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Okay. History, the way history plays out is all according to this prophecy, man, to prophecies. Okay. So let it play. I say, if y'all got any questions, feel free to ask, on the comment board.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of History with Sai. We've come a long way, from the city of Babylon's early beginnings to its first real period of greatness under Hammurabi, followed by the relatively stable and prosperous Kassite period, which later led to over a century of Assyrian rule. Now, we come to the really short, though arguably most famous period in Babylonian history, that of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. If you've seen or listened to a handful of programs on this channel, especially those focused
And you had two major empires from Babylon. You have the ancient, Babylon, which you read about in Genesis, which one Nimrod, was a king, and he, started the Tower of Babel. Okay, but then you have what you read about when you go into mainly the book of Jeremiah, okay, Ezekiel, where you read about the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Okay, that was the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It was two different, time periods. Okay, but the Neo-Babylonian Empire is the main one that's mentioned, okay, in the scriptures. When you're in the book of Jeremiah, it's speaking of this Neo-Babylonian Empire that would arise from the midst of the Assyrians. Okay, and they're going to get into it, but just wanted to make sure it was clarity on that.
on the history of ancient Mesopotamia and the Levant past the mid-Bronze Age, heard of Assyrians. We encountered them several times in the history of the region from around 2000 BCE onward. By the early Iron Age, they had established what scholars call the Neo-Assyrian Empire and ruled unchallenged across the Fertile Crescent for several centuries. What we call the Neo-Assyrian period Assyrian period kicked off around 911 BCE. Between the years 745 to about 650 BCE, Assyria was at its height and firmly entrenched in Babylonia, the land to its south. Though there were several periods of rebellion, the Assyrians were always able to smash any dissent and rule the country, either directly or through proxies and puppet rulers. Unfortunately, establishing such control at times also resulted in the city of Babylon being destroyed and having to be rebuilt on several occasions. The last great king of Assyria, Ashurbanipal, died around the year 630 BCE, which left the Assyrian Empire in the hands of his young heir, Ashur-etil-ilani. Too young to rule on his own, for a while, the chief eunuch, who was not a member of the royal family, took over as regent before usurping the throne for himself around 626 or 625 BCE. He, though, only lasted for a few months before being replaced by Sin-Shara-Ishkun, another one of Ashurbanipal's sons. By then, though, the apparent weakness and instability within Assyria's ruling house had taken its toll on many parts of the empire. 627 BCE, Assyria's puppet ruler in Babylon, Kandalanu, died, leaving the Babylonian throne unoccupied. Babylonian Chronicle 21 states,
and you see how, the Assyrians, when you will have, these surrounding, city-states, or smaller empires would try to overthrow the Assyrians, they would quell the revolt, and then they would put in puppet leaders. And you see America do the same thing today. Like over there in Ukraine, you had a leader that was pro-Russia, okay? But what happened? America, they incite a revolution, they'll pretty much engineer a revolution through PSYOPs, through CIA. And once they get the revolt going, America will back the opposing side, and the opposing side would win, and then America would install a puppet government, all right, a puppet leader. You know, they tried it in um, the last one they tried in Venezuela, okay, with trying to remove Nicolas Maduro because he's pro-Russian, he's pro-Iran, okay, but they wasn't able to do it. You know, they tried to replace him with that, you know, the Italian Obama, okay, Juan, forgot his name, Juan something, you know, but that's how, you know, these leaders do to better control, you know, the policies of these foreign nations. Okay, it's easier to install a puppet government that the power, whoever the powerhouse of the nation is, I mean, whoever the powerhouse empire on the earth is, they will install puppet leaders, okay, so they can rule through those puppet leaders. They can pretty much control the policies, you know, that will keep them in power, okay. Just like the scribes and Pharisees during the time of Yahushua, they were nothing more than puppet leaders of the Romans. Okay, that's how, you know, ancient empires would do. You know, I just wanted to put that out there. Okay.
That for 1 year there was no king in the country, after which a new ruler by the name of Nabu Aplausar, better known to us as Nabopolassar, started his reign on the 26th day of the month Arasamnu, which on the Western Gregorian calendar would have fallen on November 23rd, 626 BCE. Obviously, the Assyrian king at the time, Sin-shara Ishkun, didn't recognize Nabopolassar and chased him south all the way to the city of Uruk. Many believe that Nabopolassar's family may have actually been from there, and so the city, which was in the Sealand province and a Chaldean stronghold, would have provided the new king with some shelter and protection against his Assyrian adversaries. For a few years, the two sides seemed to have battled over the city before at last Nabopolassar could claim a final victory there. By 620 BCE, it appears that he was in control of most, if not all, of Babylonia, including the holy city of Nippur. This, though, didn't necessarily mean that Babylon and Babylonia were safe. While the Assyrians had been weakened, centuries of conflict between the two great rivals had shown that a resurgent Assyria could return at any time. One only had to look at the last century for examples of Assyria's vengeance on Babylon. The most notable instances, just in recent memory, being Sennacherib's destruction in 681 BCE, as well as Ashurbanipal's conquest a few decades later in a civil war against his brother, Shamash Shumukin. There was little that Nabopolassar could actually do. This was the Assyrian Empire we're talking about, the most powerful state in the known world at the time, that stretched from the Zagros Mountains in the east to the shores of Egypt and the Mediterranean in the west. Thinking that he could forever dislodge his northern neighbor from the scene was wishful thinking at best. It just so happened, though, that unlikely allies appeared when least expected. These were the Medes, an Iranian people who occupied large parts of the Zagros Mountains, as well as the western Iranian plateau. The two regional powers eventually struck a deal with the clear objective of eliminating Assyrian influence from the region once and for all. Heavy fighting between the Babylonians and the Assyrians started in 616 BCE. The Babylonians were eventually...
So what you had is with Nabopolassar, which is the father of Nebuchadnezzar, you know, the famous Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar, all right, was a prince at the time that his father was beginning to take down, all right, Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria. Now the Medes, eventually Nebuchadnezzar would marry, all right, one of the princesses of the Medes, okay, and pretty much join Babylon and the Medes. And you see this alliance beginning to take down, okay, the Assyrians. See, before, when it was time for the Assyrians to rule, there was nothing that the Babylonians could do to take them down. You know, all their revolts, you know, would be crushed. Okay. But when it was time for the Babylonians to rule, well, Yahweh Shema Shah allowed that to happen because it was their time. See, everything is dictated by prophecy. Okay. And the Most High set it up where the Medes, you know, were allied to the Babylonians, and they would eventually take them down. It's finna get into it. But I said that to say this: if a brother can get the book of Psalms 75. Okay, let's get Psalm 75, and let's start at 4, verse 4, and yeah, let's get verse 4, 5, 6, and 7. You know, and we'll read the rest of it a little later. Okay, towards the end, Baba Shah. You know. Let me see. So yeah, this is what we're finna see is pretty much the turning point, you know, where Babylon is gonna get the upper hand on Assyria. And it goes back into, okay, the wings being plucked. As we read, we go back into it in Daniel 7:4. It says, the first was like a lion and had eagle's wing, the Assyrian Empire. I beheld till the wings thereof was plucked. Okay, now we're going to see the wings be plucked. Okay, and it was lifted up from the earth. All right, and made stand upon the feet as a man. All right, and a man's heart was given unto it. Okay, and this is that transition period from, okay, the Syrians, all right, to Nabopolassar, the Babylonian, which he was a Chaldean. Okay, you go into Nabopolassar, he was a Chaldean, you know, which they mean that was heavy, okay, into being astrologers and stargazers and, you know, warlocks, okay, heavy into Marduk, you know, when you go into the history of Nabopolassar. So you have the Syrian Empire, then you have Nabopolassar, the Chaldean of Babylon, okay, take down Nineveh, and then his son would pretty much establish the Empire of Babylon, you know, in the known world, that Mesopotamian region, you know, because you go into the history, the empires of the East, pretty much, they would always fight for the region, okay, in the East, which is called the Mesopotamia, you know, the Fertile Crescent, okay, which Israel is a part of it, okay, and that's why you always see, you know, different empires in the East would always, you know, try to lock down, you know, Jerusalem as well, you know, because they pretty much completed that area of the Fertile Crescent. You know, you have Iran, Iraq, Syria, you know, modern day Syria, okay, Iran, Iraq, that region, you know. Um, well, let's get this real quick. All right, this from the brother. It's the brother Bayan Yasha Allah. Okay, Psalm 75:4. It says, I said unto the fool, deal not foolishly, and to the wicked, lift not up the horn. Okay. It said, lift not up your horn on high, speak not with a stiff neck. And we're going to see Nebuchadnezzar is going to do that. Okay. And that's why he had to get humble. All right. And just the same thing as Esau Edom is doing today. All right. He has a stiff neck as if he has as if he's the end and the beginning of his rulership. Like he can put himself in power and keep himself in power. Okay. We're going to see that's not the case. It said, this is verse 6, Psalm 75:6. It said, for promotion coming neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. Okay. So promotion, all right, doesn't come from within the earth. It has to be ordained in the heavens. And every kingdom has a particular time period to rule before it collapses, man, before it's conquered by another one. You see? And until that time is fulfilled, nothing don't move. There's nothing you can do against a kingdom that the Most High has set up until it's time for that kingdom to go down. And when it's time for that kingdom to go down, there's nothing they can do to keep themselves in power. Okay? This Psalm 75:7 said, but the Most High is the judge. He put it down one and set it up another. Okay, and we're watching this now. He's going to take down the Assyrians and set up the Babylonians. Okay, now let's
able to advance all the way to the region of Arapa, and then lay siege to the great city of Ashur in the heart of Assyria. The Assyrians, though, counterattacked and pushed the Babylonian forces back to what is today the area of Tikrit in Iraq. It was at this point that the Medes entered the scene. They also fought their way into the region of Arapa and advanced to the city of Ashur in 614 BCE. This time, though, the city fell, with the Medes completely razing it to the ground. Shortly after this event, Nabopolassar and the main Babylonian army arrived at Ashur, where he met the Median king, Sayachares, face to face. There, the two kings made a formal alliance before heading their separate ways. They met again in the summer of 612 BCE, when the Babylonians and Medes joined forces to take out the Assyrian capital of Nineveh, at that time perhaps the most beautiful and wealthy city in the world. After a 3-month siege, it fell, along with the Assyrian king, Sin-shara-ishkun. Despite losing the major centers of their homeland, the remnants of the Assyrian Empire fought on in the west. The new and soon-to-be last Assyrian king, Ashur-uballit II, reorganized what was left of his forces at the cities of Carchemish and Haran, sites today located in northern Syria. With his Egyptian allies, the Assyrians fought hard, but eventually lost to the Babylonian-Median coalition. And with the fall of Haran in 610 BCE, what was left of the Assyrian Empire was wiped off the map forever. The fall of Assyria, for most in the ancient Near East, would have been unimaginable just a generation before. When it fell, few mourned its passing, though many sought to pick up the pieces of what was left of its once great empire. For most in the ancient Near East, would have been unimaginable just a generation before.
they say the fall of Assyria was unimaginable just a generation before. Okay, it sounds familiar because who can imagine the American Empire? Okay, let's say 3 years from now being completely destroyed. Okay, there's no more America in the earth. Who can imagine it right now? Okay, but that's how the most how it works, man. He deals with he deals with the shock value. Okay, when it comes to prophecy, man, to showcase his power. Now you see, if you can see in this picture here, you know, you have the lion with the wings. Okay, but it has a man's head on it. Okay, showing you Daniel 7:4. It was speaking of this empire and the transition to the Babylonians, man. Okay. Um, if a brother can get that in Revelation, who can make war with the beast? Okay, because that's the mindset of people today. All right, as if they can't go down. And what's that in Isaiah 47? Let's get Psalms 10. Psalms 10 and Let's get the book of Psalms, chapter 10, verses 4 through 6. And let's get that Isaiah. Isaiah 47 and verse 7, 8, and 9. Yep. Let's see. All right, this is the brother, the hopeful elect 4, Revelation 13 and 4. It says, and they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. Okay, and this beast is what, man? This modern Roman Empire. Okay, and dragon, the ancient Roman Empire. All right, gave power to this new, Roman Empire. All right, which is NATO, America, and the EU, because America, NATO, and EU pretty much comes in the same energy of the ancient Roman Empire. That fierce military, okay, the political party, all right, and also how they would rule, okay, with force, man. You see, they were rich, became very wealthy, became decadent, very immoral, all right. So this modern Roman Empire, which America is the centerpiece, along with NATO and EU, okay, comes in that same energy. All right, that old dragon, man. Okay. And it says, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Yeah, and that's the energy that people come in today, as if, they can nothing conquer this American dynasty. Okay, with the NATO and the EU, especially add the NATO and the EU to it. All right. But the Most High loves, all right, to prove doubt was wrong, man. Okay. Now this is the brother Halak Yasha'Allah. This is Psalms 10 and 4. It said, the wicked through the pride of his countenance will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts. Okay? And this is speaking of Esau Edom of this time, man. Okay? He's not concerned about the will of Yahweh Bashim al-Shai. He's concerned about what he wants to do. His mind is occupied and what he wants to bring to the earth, man. Okay? Why he's always talking about what this World Economic Forum, what they plan on doing, the fourth industrial revolution, and people, the world not gonna change, people gonna change. He's occupying what he wants to do. Okay. Verses 10. All right, well, Psalm chapter 10, verses 5 through 6. It says, his ways are always grievous, thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for his enemies, he puffeth at them. He saith in his heart, I shall not be moved. Okay? For I shall never be in adversity, man. Okay? And you could think that the Assyrians, when they was in their prime, they had this same mind frame. Okay? They had the same mind frame as if they wasn't going to be moved. Okay? But according to prophecy, they were going to be moved. Okay? And they were moved, just like America. America is prophesied to be moved, and they're going to be moved, man. Okay? That's how it's going to play out. Let's see. So let's get this in. Okay, the brother hopeful elect, Isaiah 47:7 says, and thou sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither remember the latter end of it. Okay? And this is the energy that's here in this society, man. People are still, you look at these people suffering and complaining about inflation, but they're always talking about, okay, we always come through this, we always go through hard times. We're gonna get over it. We're gonna do this. We're gonna conquer this, and we 10, 20 years later we'll be looking at this, and and learn from it and get better. And no, it's over. Okay, this is the fall of an empire that we're witnessing, man. We're in the middle of it. Okay. This is Isaiah 47:8. It said, therefore, now hear this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know, okay, the loss of children. All right, and this from the brother Our Lum of War. So let's get verse 9, okay, from the brother Our Lum of War, Bun Lawyer. Isaiah 47:9 said, but these things shall come to thee in a moment, and one day, the loss of children, okay, and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, okay, which ancient Babylon was heavy into witchcraft, just like the daughter of Babylon, America, okay. So for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments, okay, because we're going to see that the Babylonians trusted heavy in enchantments, just like the daughter of Babylon, America, does, man. Okay.
When it fell, few mourned its passing, though many sought to pick up the pieces of what was left of its once great empire. After the fall of Haran, Nabopolassar campaigned in the Levant around Carchemish, which the Egyptians also sought to control. In 605 BCE, his son, Crown Prince Nebuchadnezzar, won a decisive battle against the Egyptians that allowed Babylon to essentially move forward in its control of the entire Levant. Shortly after this, Nabopolassar died, and the crown prince was coronated as Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon. Though Nabopolassar was arguably one of the greatest freedom fighters of his time, by his own account, he was a humble man who prided himself not on his conquests, but his piety and willingness to be part of a greater divine plan. One of his inscriptions reads,
When I was young, although I was the son of nobody, I constantly sought the sanctuaries of my lords, the gods Nabu and Marduk. My mind was preoccupied with the establishment of their prescriptions and the complete performance of their rituals. My attention was directed at justice and equity. The god Marduk, the Lord who fathoms the hearts of the gods of heaven and the netherworld, who constantly observes the conduct of mankind, perceived my inner thoughts and elevated me, the servant who was anonymous among the people, to a high status in the country in which I was born. He called to me the lordship over the country and the people. He caused a benevolent protective spirit to walk at my side. He let me succeed in everything I undertook.
In another text, he gives some advice to the kings who would come after him.
Any king at any time, whether a son or a grandson who will succeed me, and whose name Marduk will call to exert rulership of the country, do not be concerned with feats of might and power. Seek the sanctuaries of Nabu and Marduk, and let them slay your enemies. The Lord Marduk examines utterances and scrutinizes the heart. He who is loyal to Marduk, his foundations will endure. He who is loyal to the son of Marduk will last for eternity.
The new King Nebuchadnezzar.
So as you can see, all right, Nabopolassar, okay, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, was a devout follower of Marduk, okay, was one of the main Babylonian, deities that they would worship. Okay. Now, what happens is, as the prophecies of the Most High being fulfilled, these heathen kings will give credit to their gods, not knowing that it's the Most High, all right, that's controlling these things that are happening on the earth. Okay, setting up situations for certain people to come into power and certain nations to go out of power. And they will give, the heathens will give credit, to their gods. Okay, and that's why whenever it was time for a nation to be removed, well, all the false myths and prophecies of their gods would be confounded by the will of Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay, so Nabopolassar would pretty much instill this in Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and this is why Nebuchadnezzar is going to get humbling, because his mindset is that Marduk is the one that put him in power and keeping him in power. Okay, and we're going to get it. I just want to make that point.
Nebuchadnezzar spent the next few years marching through the Levant, conquering any areas that refused to recognize him as their new overlord, and collecting substantial sums of tribute, much of which was later used to beautify the capital city of Babylon, something which we'll get to shortly. Most of the former Western Assyrian provinces fell into line rather quickly and easily. In their case, it was just a change in management at the top. It was in the southern Levant that the Babylonians encountered stiff resistance. Babylonian chronicles from the year 604 BCE report that Nebuchadnezzar marched against the city of Ashkelon, captured its king, and then plundered the city before razing it to the ground, which has also been confirmed by archaeology. The most famous kingdom, though, to suffer Nebuchadnezzar's wrath was the Kingdom of Judah, with its capital at Jerusalem. In 601 BCE, Judah's king, Jehoiakim, openly challenged Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar's response came a few years later, in 598 or 597 BCE, with an assault on Jerusalem.
The 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar. In the month of Kislevu, the king of Akkad mustered his troops, marched to the Levant, and set up his quarters facing the city of Judah. In the month of Adaru, the 2nd day, he took the city and captured the king. He installed there a king of his choice. He collected its massive tribute and went back to Babylon.
Jehoiakim died during the siege and was quickly succeeded by his son, Jehoiakim, but he was captured and taken prisoner to Babylon as a hostage. In the Babylonian archives, there's an actual receipt that mentions Jehoiakim along with members of his family as the recipients of sesame oil. It reads,
32 pints for Jehoiakim, king of Judah, 5 pints for the sons of the king of Judah, 8 pints for 8 men of Judah, 1 pint each.
Though named as the king of Judah in the text, Nebuchadnezzar installed Jehoiakim's uncle, Zedekiah, as the vassal ruler of Judah. It wasn't long, though, before Zedekiah also revolted against Nebuchadnezzar. Our only source for this is the Hebrew Bible, because the specific Babylonian chronicle for that period, Chronicle 24, ends around the year 594 BCE. The story goes that Nebuchadnezzar marched again on Judah and held the city of Jerusalem under siege for 2 years before capturing it, and this time destroying it along with its great temple, which scholars believe all occurred in the year 586 BCE. In addition, he took an even greater percentage of the population back to Babylonia with him as exiles. Judah, though.
So now, okay, you get into the history, all right, of Babylonians taking down, okay, Jerusalem. Now, I'm gonna go to the Bible because there's some things I want to read down on. And also, I want to show y'all this because you had 2 sieges, all right, from the Babylonian Empire, okay, on Jerusalem. Now, I got the dates here. I got this. This is a pretty interesting article too. Pretty good information. Let's see. I see how long going in over there. You can't make it up, brother. The history is crazy accurate with the Bible. Like, you know, the history is crazy accurate, man. We'll get that account too, brother. But yep, so you go to hear this article here. What I do, I post this too, because it seems like this gonna be a pretty good source, you know, to you brothers. Okay, you some of you sisters that like, you know, to go into the history of certain things. So yeah, it's a pretty good article, and it goes into the sieges of Jerusalem. Now you go here. It said Nebuchadnezzar the second's two sieges. Okay, you had one in 597 and one in 587. Now the one in 597, okay, that's when Daniel, okay, and the nobles of our people were taken. You know, also the essential, what today would be known as the essential workers. Okay, different craftsmen and, you know, like I say, different judges and noblemen, you know, were taken in their first siege. Okay, and then you had the siege of 587, and that was the siege in which Ezekiel, he was taken, you know, in that siege, you know, to Babylon, to prophesy in Babylon. Okay, which that's a symbolic for us, because we was brought to the daughter of Babylon to prophesy. Okay, we was pretty much taken, you know, and brought over here, or either the tribes that was over here was siege, you know, by these, you know, the daughter of Edom. Okay, and the Lord raised up prophets in Babylon. Okay, so just as He did Ezekiel. Now this is going into it a little bit. It says in 587 BC, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, all right, sieged and conquered Jerusalem, then installed a young puppet ruler named Jehoiakim, who was in turn, all right, replaced by Zedekiah. Zedekiah rebelled against Babylon, allying himself with the Egyptians. Nebuchadnezzar would not stand for this. He once again invaded and surrounded Jerusalem. All right. The city fell after either 1.5 year or 2.5 years of siege and vengeance for the revolt. And as a deterrent to others, Nebuchadnezzar had the city burned to the ground and its citizens taken away into captivity. Okay. And so it was only with the rise of the Persian Empire that the Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple in 500 BCE. And that's a lesson for another day. You know, we'll segue into that time period. All right, on another lesson. But you see those two different sieges, okay, which they're all, you know, within the Bible. Now, when you go, let's get into the blue letter for a minute, because I'm gonna have to read down on some things. Yep, it's one of them lessons, you know, get kind of tedious, you know, but it's good to know. You can get a little nerdy for a minute. So if you was, you know, looking to see Eve in that, you know, that blue jean jacket, all right, not, you know, allowed in a restaurant, then, you know, I apologize. You know, this is not that type of lesson here. But let's go to the blue letter for a minute and just get a few accounts, that match up, with the history we just, went over. Now, when you go to Daniel, the first chapter. All right, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 1. It says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem and besieged it. Okay? And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of the Most High, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes. Yeah, so he's going to the nobility. Okay, it says children, okay, in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning and knowledge and understanding of science, and such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's place. Yeah, so he got the elite, okay, men, all right, from the house of Judah, okay, the nobility, okay, even though they were able to stand in the king's place, which means what? They knew how to run the affairs of the kingdom, okay. It says, in whom they might teach, okay, the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. You see that? Teach them the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. They wanted to what? Use the elites, okay, of the house of Judah to do what? Help forward the kingdom of the Chaldeans. Just like in America, we was brought over here and taught the ways of the West, okay, in this English language to do what? Forward, all right, this empire, man. No new thing under the sun. This is Daniel 1 and 5. It says, and the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank. So nourished them 3 years. At the end, they might stand before the king. So this is going into Daniel, the 3 Hebrew boys, and okay, Daniel went on a fast. He rejected the king's meat. That's a good story to see. What you see, their first siege, they brought pretty much Daniel, and the nobles. Okay. I'll read 6. It says, now among these children, all right, among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, all right, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Okay, and those are the 3, all right, Hebrew boys that was thrown in the fire, Just their Hebrew names, they was changed, okay, unto these names in the 7th verse, all right, that, people know the story. When you go into the burning furnace, they know mostly by their Babylonian names. It says, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name Belshazzar, and Hananiah, all right, of Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. Okay, but just show you that they came from their first siege. Okay, then you had the second siege, in which you had Ezekiel. Okay, when you go to Ezekiel, because it talked about, because you go here, it talks about, all right, Jehoiakim, but then you go here to Ezekiel. Okay, Ezekiel 1:1. It says, "Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, of the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Kabar, that the heavens were open, and I saw visions of the Most High in the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King, all right, Jehoiakim's captivity." Okay, so you go into Jehoiakim. All right, and it says the king of Judah, son of Jehoiakim, and the next to last king of Judah before the Babylonian captivity. King shall last 3 months and 10 days before he surrendered to Nebuchadnezzar, who took him to Babylon and imprisoned him for 36 years. Okay, when he was finally released. Okay, so it was 2 different sieges. All right, so now let's go back to the documentary.
Wasn't the only land to suffer. Shortly afterward, Nebuchadnezzar seems to have meted out the same fate to both Ammon and Moab. A percentage of the population back to Babylonia with him as exiles. Judah, though, wasn't the only land to suffer. Shortly afterward, Nebuchadnezzar seems to have meted out the same fate to both Ammon and Moab. Scholars have speculated that all of these regions were subject to a sort of scorched earth policy because the Babylonians were also at war with the Egyptians and didn't want them to gain a hold of any territory in the Levant. In fact, the only rebellious land or city that completely escaped subjugation, at least for a time, was the Phoenician city-state of Tyre, the main part of which was located on an island and evaded capture. After a reportedly 13-year-long siege, its king came to an agreement with Nebuchadnezzar where Tyre was allowed to be ruled by local kings in return for vassalage and the use of its large fleet, which essentially became the Babylonian navy. Though the Babylonian armed forces were campaigning and causing havoc to the west, there was peace and prosperity at home. This allowed Nebuchadnezzar to commission many building projects that essentially transformed Babylon into once again the world's most beautiful and wealthy city. Though there's little evidence of the famous Hanging Gardens, plenty of textual information has been found at the site of ancient Babylon and other cities detailing all of the temples, palaces, elaborate gardens, and defensive wall restorations that Nebuchadnezzar II commissioned. In one text, the Babylonian king himself describes how he was active in the city's renovation.
This street of Babylon having become increasingly lower, I pulled down the gates and relaid their foundations at the water table with asphalt and bricks. I had them remade of bricks with blue stone, on which wonderful bulls and dragons were depicted. I covered their roofs by laying majestic cedars lengthwise over them. I fixed doors of cedarwood, trimmed with bronze in all of the gates. I placed wild bulls and ferocious dragons in the gateways, and thus adorned them with luxurious splendor, so that mankind might gaze on them in wonder.
Though it's believed that he himself didn't visit the city, Herodotus in the 5th century BCE wrote of Babylon's vast size and grandeur according to what he'd probably heard from others.
The city stands on a broad plain and is an exact square, 120 stadia in length each way, so that the entire circuit is 480 stadia. While such is its size and magnificence, there is no other city that approaches to it. It is surrounded, in the first place, by a broad and deep moat, full of water, behind which rises a wall 50 royal cubits in width and 200 in height.
It wasn't just Babylon that benefited from such programs, but also cities such as Borsippa, where the god Nabu's main temple was, and Uruk. Most of this, of course, was funded from the spoils of Nebuchadnezzar's many conquests. Nebuchadnezzar died in late 562 BCE and was succeeded by his son, Amel-Marduk, whose short reign of only 2 years started the gradual decline of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It's perhaps for this reason that the Babylonian historian Berosus, writing in Greek in the 4th century BCE, claims that he was killed by his brother-in-law, Neri-Glissar, who then seized the throne for himself and reigned as king for 4 years.
So now, you're going to go into the decline of the Babylonian Empire, okay? Which we'll pick up with that in history, and we'll segue into, the Persians, Lord will. But now let's just get some precepts to show, how the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, okay? How he ruleth in the kingdom of men. Because when you go here, remember, Nebuchadnezzar was giving all credit to Marduk, okay? But he had to go through a great humbling. So I'm gonna read this account. Okay, you see the title, okay, of this chapter. It says the king acknowledges the Most High. Okay, and see, matter of fact, if I get that, I want to get this in Jeremiah. Okay, because the Lord pretty much used, Babylon to conquer and subdue, the rest of the heathens. Okay. Now this is showing that whatever the Most High speak is going to come to pass. All right, and it's going to come to pass how he said it. It's Jeremiah 25:1. It said the word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Joachim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah. That was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Judah, the which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying. And see, a lot of Jake during that time period, they looked at Jeremiah as if he was a traitor, okay? But no, he was just speaking what was to come, okay? And then Jake was wicked as hell, and that's why the Lord would allow the Babylonians to have their way, okay, with the southern kingdom, man. All right, verse 3, it said, from the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that it is the 12th year, the word of the Lord have come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising up early and speaking, but ye have not hearkened. Niggas wouldn't listen. Just like today. Because as we say, Jacob's trouble, okay, is coming, okay, through the daughter of Babylon, niggas still refuse to listen. Because it's going to happen. We just speaking what it is. Okay? And it says, and the Lord have sent unto you all his servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, but you have not hearkened nor inclined your ear. They said, turn ye again now, every one from his evil way and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land that the Lord hath given unto you and to your fathers forever and ever, and go not after the other gods to serve them, to worship them, and provoke me not to anger with the words of your hands, and I will do you no hurt. Yet ye have not hearkened unto me, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, that ye might provoke me to anger with the works of your hands to your own hurt. Okay? So Jeremiah trying to tell Jake, listen, repent, get right, put down the idols. Okay? But Jake wouldn't do it. The same thing like today. The Lord has sent out all these prophets to warn our people of what's to come. See, because it's gonna happen. We just pray for, all right, to be preserved from it. Okay, because it's gonna happen. All right. Jeremiah was telling them what they should do to be preserved from what's to come. Okay, but what do niggas do? They buck up harder. You see, the Babylonians had to come twice. Like Jake didn't even repent after the first, siege. Okay, in the exile, niggas still was rebellious. Okay, and it said, therefore, thus said the Lord of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north. All right, said the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. Okay, no vocab would take something like this and say, see, you know, salvation for everybody. No, okay, the Nebuchadnezzar was just a servant of Yahweh Shema Shai. He was doing his will. He was the king set up to do particular things for prophecy's sake, man. Everything on earth is the Lord's servant. If a brother can, okay, everything to the smallest molecule and atom is a servant to Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay, it doesn't mean that he's chosen or the Chaldeans are chosen. No, okay, the Lord just using him for a service, man. Okay, if a brother can put that in the book of Sirach 18. Let's see. All right, Sirach 18 and 1. Yeah, 1 through 3. Yep. Sirach 18, 1 through 3. And then Proverbs 20, 21 and 1. Okay. Yep, the brother already got it. This is Proverbs 21 and 1. The brother I will on war. Okay, now let me stop sharing it real quick. Back to the blue letter. All right, this is Proverbs 21 and 1 said, the king's heart, which is in mine, is in the hand of the Lord. Okay, how about Shema Shah, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar was a servant unto the Most High for what? To do his will. Vladimir Putin is a servant of the Most High. Esau Edom is a servant of the Most High, doing what he's instructed to do on the left-hand side to fulfill prophecy, man. Okay, it's Sirach 18 and 1. It says, he that liveth forever have created all things in general. Okay, verse 2 from the brother Avalon War. The Lord only is righteousness, and there is none other but he. Okay, verse 3, it says, who governeth the world with the palm of his hand, and all things obey his will, for he is the king of all. So everything is a servant under the Most High. Okay, but under that he has a chosen people. Okay, and within that chosen people, he has a son, all right, that's anointed to reign in righteousness forever. Okay, because you can be anointed to reign for a certain period of time. Okay. Well, Yahweh Shah is anointed to reign in righteousness forever. It's a big difference. It said, by his power dividing holy things from them, okay, from the profane. You see that? So let's go back to Jeremiah 25 and 9. It said, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, said the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them and make them an astonishment and a hissing and perpetual desolations. Now, we've seen that what? Babylon took down Moab, Ammon, okay, Edom. It says, moreover, I will take from them the voice of the mirth and the voice of gladness and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstone and the light of the candle. And this is similar to these times, okay? Because Yahweh Shai is going to be the ultimate, okay, servant of the Most High when he comes to conquer all these heathens in righteousness, man. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar was doing it, all right, on a much smaller level, all right, for the sake of prophecy. Okay, but Yahweh Shai is going to do it on a much larger scale. Hey, because the days of Noah, what was going to be going on during the days of Noah? Marrying, giving in marriage, eating and drinking. Okay. So what's going to happen? Yahweh Shai is going to take that away. That mirth that's going to be taken away of Yahweh Shai, as Nebuchadnezzar did on these other nations, man. Okay. It says, and the whole land shall be a desolation and astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Yeah, because it wasn't a long reign. You know, when you go into the Neo-Babylonian Empire from Nabopolassar to Nebuchadnezzar, okay, and you had a few more kings, you know, that will come after Nebuchadnezzar. But pretty much after Nebuchadnezzar, it started to go down, okay? And it says, and it shall come to pass when the 70 years are accomplished, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, said the Lord, for their iniquity and the Chaldeans, and I will make it a perpetual desolation, and I will bring upon the land all the words which I have pronounced against it. So eventually the Lord will punish Babylon, and it will be through the Persians, okay? Which the Persians pretty much just absorb the kingdom of Babylon, which we're going to get it. In another lesson, Lord will, it says, even all that is written in this book which Jeremiah have prophesied against all nations, okay? For many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of them, and I will recompense them according to their deeds and according to the works of their own hands, okay? For thus said the Lord power of Israel unto me, take the wine, the cup of this fury at my hand, and cause all nations to who I send thee to drink it. Okay, okay. It said, then took I the cup of the Lord's hand and made all nations to drink unto whom the Lord have sent me, to wit, Jerusalem and the cities of Judah and the kings thereof and the princes thereof, to make them a desolation and astonishment and hissing and a curse as it is today. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, okay, and his servants and his princes, and to all his people, and all the mingled people, and all the kings of the land of Uz, okay, and all the kings of the land of Philistine, Ashkelon, all right, Azah, Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, and Moab, and the children of Ammon, okay. You see that? And all the kings of Tyrus, and all the kings of Zidon, and all the kings of the isle which are beyond the sea. So the Lord pretty much is giving all these nations under the rulership of the Babylonians. Okay, they had to drink of that cup of being conquered by the Babylonians. You see, and that's why you see that once Nebuchadnezzar got into power, okay, he was able to overcome Egypt. Okay, he was able to overcome, okay, Zidon and Tyre. Then he took down Ammon, Moab. Okay, Edom was under their jurisdiction as well, man. Okay, but it was given to them of who? It was pronounced. It was a judgment. See, before these things happened, it was already discussed between Jeremiah, okay, and the Most High what was going to happen. So things have to be ordained in the heavens, okay, before they play out in the earth. And that's why you go to Daniel, the 4th chapter. Nebuchadnezzar had to learn this the hard way, okay? And I'm going to read through it. This is Daniel 4:1. All right, this is Daniel 4:1. It says, Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all the people, nations, and language that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. It said, I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that that the high God had wrought toward me. How great are his signs? And see, he's talking about Marduk. Okay. How mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. It says, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore, I made a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might, it said, that they might make known the interpretation thereof of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last, Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belshazzar, okay, according to the name of my God, and in whom it is the spirit. Oh, it says, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and before him I told the dream, saying, so he's equating everything to his gods. Okay, even the ability that Daniel had to interpret dreams, equating it to his gods. Okay, it says, oh, Belshazzar, master of the magicians. So he's looking at Daniel as if he's some type of warlock. Okay, because I know that the spirit of the holy God is in thee, and no secret trouble thee. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of my head. In my bed I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the ends of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all the flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and I beheld a watcher and holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said, hew down the tree and cut off his branches, shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his root in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the grass in the earth. Let his hand be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. Okay, it said this matter is by the decree of the watchers. Okay, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, the angels, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of man, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set it up over it the basis of men. So now the Most High is about to prove a point. Okay, so let's keep reading. This dream I Nebuchadnezzar have seen. Now thou, O Belshazzar, declare, okay, or Daniel, we call him Daniel, okay, goddamn Belshazzar. Which you go into it, let's get that name real quick. You know, that's speaking of Daniel. All right, this is a long Hebrew name. Let's see. It's like Balatai Shatai. It's Balatai Sha'atazar. Balatai Sha'atazar in the Hebrew. Okay. And it goes into Lord of the Scraton's treasure. Okay. You know, this Daniel. All right. We'll call him Daniel. mama called him Daniel, we're gonna call him Daniel. All right, Daniel Allah. Okay, judge of the Most High. In the Hebrew, it said, "This dream I Nebuchadnezzar have seen. Now thou, O Daniel, declare this interpretation." Declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. Then Daniel, all right, whose name was Belshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Daniel, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Daniel answered and said, My Lord, the dream be them that hate thee, and the interpretation, all right, he said, My Lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thy enemies. So Daniel, like, he's getting a breakdown. The angels is working on Daniel's mind, giving him the breakdown. And as it's getting broken down to him, he's seeing that it's bad news for Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so he's like, look, let this be to your enemies and those that hate you. And then he's going to go into the dream. He said, the tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reaches unto heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was the meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven, all right, had their habitation. It said, it is thou, O king, thou art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and the Holy One coming down from heaven and saying, hew the tree down and destroy it, yet leave a stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass over. And that's just a complete period of time, okay, until Nebuchadnezzar will be broken, okay. I said, this is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree from the Most High, which is come upon my Lord the king. So Daniel is letting him know, no, this is coming from the Most High. This is coming from Yahweh, okay. It said, not no Marduk, okay. It said that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. Yeah, because he's going to live outside, so just as the dew covered, the earth in the morning, he was going to be dwelling outside, and the dew was going to be on him. It says, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee, after thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Whereof, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thy iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening, okay, of thy tranquility, which is peace. So they ain't trying to get them to repent, but it is not, it is not meant for them to. So all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the king of Babylon, and the king spake and said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for, for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? Okay, and he's at the peak of his pride. Okay, and that should remind you, remind you of someone else we know. Okay, it says, while the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over unto thee, until thou, okay, know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the fulfilling was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, okay, and he was driven from men and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs had grown like eagle feathers, and his nails like bird claws. And at the end of the days, I Nebuchadnezzar lifted up my eyes unto heaven, and my understanding was returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High. You see, all that my guys, and that Marduk. Well, don't talk about no Marduk. Okay, the Most High proved the point. Okay, and he was broken. And I praise and honor him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. Okay, and he doth according to his will, okay, in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say unto him, what doest thou? Okay, he gets it. Okay, he was broken out there. All right. At the same time, my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my Lord saw unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and the excellent majesty was added unto me. He understood where it came from. Okay. And the Lord, in the dream said he's going to leave him a root, okay, of his kingdom that he can return back to. All right. And it said, now I Nebuchadnezzar praise and extol and honor the king with a capital K, the king of heaven. All who works are truth, and his way is judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Okay. Most High proved the point. And what you think he's finna do to Esau, man? Okay. So I'm gonna get this here. I know this has been kind of lengthy, but hey, let's get this. The Marduk talk was confounded, just like now. Esau finna be confounded, his Satanism and all this finna be confounded, man. Okay, and he finna be a base. Esau finna be a base like no other, though, man. It's gonna be a great fall for Esau, Edom. Okay, this is Jeremiah 51. It said the word. All right, that the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shah, spake against Babylon, against the land of the Chaldeans by the prophet, by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations and publish and set up a standard, publish and conceal not. Because remember, Babylon was in the peak of his power. And the Lord does that to the heathen nation, allows them to be raised up high so he can bring them down low through a showcase of power. It says, and conceal not, say, Babylon is taken, Baal is confounded, Merodach, all right, Merodach is broken in pieces, her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces, all right, and just like this image of the beast is going to be broken in pieces and confounded, okay, it's going to be confounded, man. These are the times, all right, that we're in, man, okay. The great king, Yahweh Shema Shah, is about to make a statement in the earth, man. He did it before, he finna do it again. All right. So as we can see, Most High has complete control over the rulerships of the earth, man. Okay. And when heathens get beside themselves, the Most High comes in and showcases power. He lets them get carried away with pride, and then he comes shows power. Okay. So matter of fact, let's end it there. I just read this the other day. I think it's Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12. Yes, Wisdom of Solomon 12 and 17. Yep, Wisdom of Solomon 12 and 17. we end it there. Okay, but this is what we're about to see. And like I said, I put this link again. And like I say, this is an excellent source, to get into history. If you like history documentaries, this channel is an excellent channel. I say you want to go into the sieges, you can go into that. But this is Wisdom of Solomon 12 and 17. Okay, from Brother Avalon War. It says, "For when men will not believe that thou art full of a full power, thou showest thy strength, and among them that know it, thou makest their boldness manifest." Okay, because we believe in the power of Yahweh Shem Shah, and he's going to manifest, and he's going to make believers out of all non-believers, man, in the time we're coming into. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you few sisters were edified. Once again, we'll give all praise and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, by Hashem, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great example to our younger brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful Shalom.